Okay, so everybody can get me now? And can you see the screen? Okay, so usually when we say silence means consent. So, can everybody see the screen?
Sure, sure.
You have to mute. It's much background noise. So I cannot unmute myself. Yeah. Is it better? No, I'm still. Yeah, I think you're good. No, I'm still muted. Okay. Wait, no. Okay, yeah, actually. Okay, nice. Now, muted. So everybody can hear me now. Wow. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. So I will just talk to you about how to do some workable research. Just tips on the things that we should be doing. Like, and there is a very nice quote from Albert Einstein who says, if we knew what we were doing, it will not be called research, will it? So because we don't really know what we're doing, so we always have to find out. So the first thing which I'm going to be looking at. Oh, what's happening? The screen is not. Okay. Let's look at the basic concept of research or the key to getting started in any research. So usually a research comprises 4 major components, or what we call the 4 key components. Writing your protocol, performing the experiments, tabulating and analyzing your data, and writing a thesis or manuscript if you need that data to be published. So the first step, which we always take in doing any sort of investigation, is what we call our research topic. And so it can be done in different variety of ways. So the experiment which we are always trying to perform might be building up ones which we think are new, things that have been done earlier, or something that may be the results of something we've noticed in everyday life. So things that just crop up in our minds and said, okay, this is what I'm trying to investigate on, then we can easily write our research on that. For example, we look at simple things like people always look at research as very complicated things, but I always think as students and as researchers, we always like to look at the simple things we observe. For example, you might have noticed that mold grows quicker in hot temperatures. And you want to find out, is that true? If the hotter we get, does mold grow easily? So there are so many tools that we use when we start finding out the basic concept of our research. We can use the internet, which is the basic tool that everybody has access to now. We can go to books in the libraries. We can use magazines. We can talk to knowledgeable people to try to find out some more details about what they know or they've seen or observed. We can do more research into the project, like what other people have done, because we always say we don't try to reinvent the wheel. People have already done what we're trying to do, so make sure you can talk to them and look at what they've done already. And just make a list of where you find each piece of information, because that is what is going to help you in writing your research. And then you need to narrow down your research into one easily testable problem. Remember, you want to make it down into an easily testable problem because it is much easier to test one thing at a time. So so initially we'll talk about mold growing at higher temperatures. So we say, what is our problem here? We said simple, find out whether mold grows quicker at higher temperatures. Straightforward. Don't try to make it more complicated. Some people want to say, okay, let's see, would more grow with different types of bread and varying amounts of light? When you start adding so many variables, you make it complicated for something that looks very simple. And so the scientific way, or what we want to do is, once we have our problems, we want to test it one step at a time. Always test one thing at a time and get your results. And once you have the results of this experiment, then you can start testing other variables. But just make sure things are very simple and straightforward. You test them one at a time, then you can start testing other variables. And so you start really going forward when you bring out your hypothesis. Your hypothesis is that statement of fact that you're going to try to prove or to disprove. So remember that hypothesis is never wrong. So in our example, we say more grows quicker at higher temperatures. So once we get your hypothesis, just find a way. Why did you pick this hypothesis? Just try to always state why you have your hypothesis and write it down, because this is what your experiment should be designed around. So it must never be changed, even if you think your hypothesis is wrong, because science is never about right or wrong answers. It's just coming to a conclusion of what you're testing. So science is never about a right or wrong answer. So never try to change it. Once you write your hypothesis, make sure you go forward with it. So the next step is, once you get your hypothesis, you need to run this experiment. And so there are always important variables which you have to remember when you're designing your experiment. So we have the independent variables. Those are those that change in order to provide your result. And for a mode experiment, we talked about rising temperature. So temperature will be our independent variables. That is what that changes to provide the results. Then we have the control variables, the things that never change. And the dependent variables is what we are measuring. For example, we saw how much the mold grows on a slice of bread or a piece of bread. So that is your dependent variable, what you should measure it. And make sure every time you're running your experiment, it should always be able to duplicate your experiment. So you run your experiment in batches and take a mean or average of your results. You remember, you are publishing your results is something that you're explaining that somebody else can do. So you always try to run those experiments in batches so you can be able to duplicate your efforts. So once you get your experiments going, then you should be able to let the world know what you found out at the end of the experiments. And this is what your results are. Just telling everybody what you know. So, but you don't need to show all the different types of calculations you made in your results, but make it clear what type of calculations you're using, what type of statistical software you're using. Just you don't need to go into the details of how you did them, but always make sure you state it clearly and describe what you found. And one of the best ways to illustrate that is using graphs and tables, because it's easy to summarize your findings in graphs and tables. The last aspect which you do once you have your results is to discuss it. So you need to assess how the results answer your hypothesis in different ways. And you try to discuss the relevance to the existing knowledge in the field. Remember that people have already done what you're doing, or you're trying to find out what happens. And so you need to try to tell us, why are you doing this? And in conclusion, you bring an answer to the hypothesis which you wrote at the beginning of the experiment as briefly as possible. And we always say we learn from reading other papers, because at the end of your results, you always try to leave some questions that you cannot answer, or something that you think other people can expand upon your research project. So when you read most papers, you always come out with some more questions. And so those questions are the things that you try to answer from the next project. And remember that we are students and we are researchers, and there are different ways, there are different objectives why we conduct our experiments or why we do our research. As a student, you try to write your thesis. So, but if you want a wider audience to read it, then you need to rewrite that thesis as a journal article. So a thesis and journal articles are really two different subgenres of academic writing. They are meant for different audiences and are written for different purposes. They follow very different styles and set different expectations. When you do your thesis or dissertations, you try to put everything you know. So those ones are very long and demonstrate everything you've learned in your field. because you put that in front of your committee, or your committee will need to assess your knowledge based on the topic. So, but if you're trying to write journal articles, remember that you're writing something that should be succinct and brief, because it's going to be read by busy scientists and researchers who are trying to look for practical ideas that are backed with evidence. So you have to be extremely focused in terms of presentations and follow the specific format. So different journals have different guidelines on how to write them. And so I'm sure in the course of this mentorship program, we are going to be looking at journal articles and how we can publish in different ways. So I think briefly, these are just the tips I just put together on how to do basic research. Okay.
Any questions? Anybody have any questions?
Hello? I've got a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Clearly. Can you hear me?
I will put my.
Yeah. So I just wanted to find out, Yami and Kevin, so one of the outcomes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now? He's muted. So I wanted to find out if one of the outcomes for this process was actually joint publication, joint authoring of articles. Publication. I don't know how to.
Maybe type in a message there.
Ideas that come forward where people start thinking of doing combined or research together, then we can do joint publication.
Okay. Does that answer the question? Yeah.
Kevin, we couldn't hear you for part of that. We couldn't hear part of what you answered.
Okay. I think I'll suggest that if you want to ask a question, you quickly unmute yourself to ask the question. So that way it's a little bit easier. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of echo in the background, and that may not be too pleasant. But
can
yeah.
Kevin repeat what he said?
Kevin, can you repeat what he said?
Okay, can you get me, or should I unmute?
No, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, clearly. Okay, the outcome of this process is not joint publications, okay, because we are not doing the same type of research. But joint publications might be one of the possible outcomes as part of this process, because I'm sure in the course of time we might identify synergies in the things that we do and decide to write something together. So it's a possible outcome, but it's not a major outcome of this process.
Does that answer the question?
When who was presenting the presentation, send us or email us his presentation.
We want to know if we can have the presentation by email.
Yes.
Yeah, we will provide links to and send it out after the meeting to everybody. So yeah, just to add one more point to that question, I think the whole point is that we have a program and a platform where you can easily look for possible collaborators within the group. So I'm sure if you can ask questions, if there are people that are doing similar things that you're doing, then that would create a means for you to be able to collaborate with them and share your project with them, or they can share their project with you. And that's where I think you can foster collaboration, and which potentially could lead to paper between you and your collaborator that will be within the platform. But of course, like Calvin said, we're not all doing the same research. So that would lead to a little bit of more complexity in that form. But if you can find collaborator within the group, that would be a good way for you to get some joint paper with somebody else. That's a good question. Anybody else?
I think there's a question in the chat.
No, I saw that is the number of research questions limited? No, the number of questions are not limited. So as you're doing your research, you always come out with so many different questions. So make sure, ask yourselves as many questions as possible. So that opens up your mind and keeps your mind open to the things that you want to answer or want to address.
Okay, any other question? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, please, Emily.
So I'm an undergrad, and when I think about research, as I approach it, I'm unsure what methods I should use that were most effective to conduct the research. Do I look at papers that are similar to the research that I want to do to find out those methods, or is there a different way to find the most effective, experimentation procedures?
I think the basic first step for every researcher is to look at what has been done already in your field. And the best way to do that is to go through papers that have been published. That will give you an idea of the different methods that have been used, because so many different methods could answer a same set of questions. So it is always a very good idea to try to see how many people have published, how much publication has been done, or how much work has been done in what you want to do. So in the process of reading those papers, you're going to come out with research methods that will match your ideas.
Okay, thanks.
I would like to add something, if everyone can hear me, because I started my research when I started a PhD, and at the beginning, the research question was not really formulated. In fact, we just had a vague idea. It was more like it could fit in a project. But it took me 3 years to figure out this research question. But in the beginning of your presentation, you say it must be clear, and that's the first thing you have to find out. But in my experience, it took me more than 3 years to find out actually what is my research question. I only finalized the title of my thesis 5 years just before submitting. So I wanted to have your view on how do you define your research question when, for many of us, I think it's, when you start, it's vague, and how do you get to the point where you can formulate precisely what is your question? And that's my question.
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting observation. Yes, at times it might take you so long just to come out really with what you want to do. That's why there was that question: is how many research questions can you ask? Are you limited by the number of questions? No. Ask yourselves as many questions as you can, because at times you don't really know what you want to do. You come out to research questions and look at different methods, you read different papers before coming to a conclusion of what you want to do. It might take 3 years to do that, that's true. So again, but with mentorship and supervision, when you have a supervisor or an advisor, they will help you to guide you through the process easily, especially as a young research student. You don't want to go all alone because you might take so long to really come to the conclusion of what you want to do. And also the mentorship, what we're doing now will definitely be of very great help, because you're going to bring up those problems during the course of our mentorship discussions, and then we can brainstorm and see how we can direct those type of research questions.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think that's a general problem for some people that starting off research. I also had similar problem too when I had my PhD, so I don't think you're alone in that area. But yeah, nice question. All right, Neil, your question.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this platform on this forum. My question has to do with sample size as it relates to ecological survey. Presently, doing much of a postdoctoral research on wetland birds, water birds in Malaysia. And we had a challenge as regards knowing the number of point stations. I don't know if there's a standard on that, knowing the number of point stations in terms of the sample size as it relates to the whole study area. So that's my first question. My second question has to do with editing when it comes to manuscripts writing, because that's one of an aspect I'm having challenge with, and I don't know whether it's part of the focus of this program, how we can then have assistance when it comes to that. You know, in the part of the world I come from, English could be the lingua, but we need much of polishing to be able to meet all the standard of highly rated journals. So those are my two questions and submissions.
Okay, sample size is always key to most experiments you do, because remember, very small sample size can really bias your results and give you results that are do not really reflect your systems. So usually if you're collecting points, there is always a minimum of about 30 points, 30 to 35 points. That should be a minimum to give you a reflection of really what you want to do, because sample size are really key. If you're trying to get more, the more points you can collect, the more data you collect, the closer you are to the actual activities on the ground, or what research questions you're trying to answer. So the more samples you can collect, always the better. Remember that, try to get as many samples as you can. But if you cannot, if you're limited by how much points you can collect in most experiments, usually 30, it's that number, that range that will tell people, okay, we should be having enough sample sizes. And in writing your manuscript, if your sample size are very small and people try to duplicate or run your experiments, you can easily get bias in them, and so papers like that cannot be published. Secondly, when you talk about reviewing of manuscripts, that is really one of the things that we should be focusing on as part of this process. Yes, we understand. As we either in our profession, we always say you publish or you perish. So we need to be sending our papers out there to tell the world what we're doing. We need to publish our results. And most of these first-tier journals will want to make sure a native English speaker looks at the manuscript so that it conforms to the standards of the things that we want to publish. So we are going to be there to help and to proofread and to make sure those papers are written in the format that is required. Also remember that there are always, every time you submit your publication for review, there are lots of comments that will come out. And so we take those comments very seriously and try to address them as clearly as possible and be as polite as possible. Never take a criticism or a critique of your work as a bad thing. It should always be something very good. And in responding, you shouldn't make it personal. Make it very polite in such a way that you address the issues at hand without going personal. So I think as part of this process, we should be able to help to streamline or to guide some of the researchers who want to publish their papers in any of these first-tier journals.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, that's a very, really good question, Alani. So that's like Kevin said, this is one of the things that we hope to do under this program. So like Ashley has mentioned earlier and I mentioned earlier, so the way we hope this is going to work is that if, for example, you have a paper that you've written that you want other people within the group to help you proofread and edit or correct you or criticize you, as the case may be, the first thing you do is that you send it to the people within your subgroup. So whether you're an orange group or blue group, you send it to the people within that group first. And then those people would help you read it and they will talk to you about it. You know, for example, if you have some bad English somewhere, they can easily point that out. And then from there, you know, the group leaders, the organizers within the group can also pick it up and help you proofread it and things like that. So this should be done within the subgroup level, like I mentioned earlier. And so it's a good question. This is one of the things that we're hoping to do. And yeah, thank you for that question. Anybody have any other question? I see that Elaine was saying that it should be published or flourish. Well, yeah, I think that's quite funny. But yeah, hopefully we can all flourish when we publish. But yeah, it's much harder to publish these days. I think that's probably why Kelvin used the phrase publish or what is it? Publish or perish. Yeah. Yeah. Any question? Yeah, so just to add another point, so things like what Nii brought out is what we're open to do. You know, everybody have different challenges. It might be about research, it might be about software programming and all that stuff. It might be about just trying to have a little bit more exposure about a particular topic that is a little bit elusive to you if you're starting out in a particular area. So these are questions that don't be shy, don't feel reluctant to ask a question. Don't be shy, just ask the question so that somebody can come along to help. So yeah, Bastien, you have a question?
Sive, who have a question?
Yeah.
There's a question over here. So how long do you have to, or how much results or how much data do you have to have in order to present at a conference during your research? How do you gauge whether you're ready enough, you've worked enough in order for you to present at a conference?
Did you hear?
So how much data do you have to have before you know that you have enough data to write a paper?
I think results to be able to present in a conference.
Or to be able to present, it depends on your research question. Remember, if you're doing genetic research, you don't need to collect so many points, so many animals to get answers. You can do a few animals with so many genes. So some of them you can. It depends on really what is your research question. What are you trying to address? So that should guide you on how much data you need to see the type of result of the trends. And once you start running your analysis, definitely some trends will start coming out. Once you can find trends in your data, you can start writing them out, then you can present that in a conference. You don't need so much data to present in any conference. You just need results.
Yeah. Any question? Any more? Please be open to ask questions. This is exactly the reason why we have this platform. We need the questions to be able to make things functional. So just ask the questions if you do, and then again, there is no such thing as stupid question. That's right. Thank you. Yeah. So one other thing I wanted to say is that if you think that you're having, as one of the surveys we're going to be studying after the meeting today is going to be asking questions as to what other things you would like us to discuss in our subsequent meeting. So we're hoping to get ideas from you. And in general, we want it to be things that you think you would love to learn more. So today we talk about research design in general, and Kelvin has graciously helped us to explain a little bit better as to some of the tips that is needed to do a good research. And of course, this is very important to all of us because most of us are doing research one way or the other. But if there's other area that you want us to cover, other aspects that you want us to cover, please let us know so that we can try to get somebody that's more like an expert to be able to discuss with us in that area. So this is what we hope to be doing during the general meeting every other month as we're doing it, while more specific questions are going to be tailored to the subgroup levels, either the orange group or the blue group. Yeah. Any other question? Nii, you have another question?
Yes. The first one has to do with the aspect of experimentation. And in the section that the lecture we had as regards experimentation, I would really appreciate if there will be an opportunity because, looking at the independent variable and then dependent variable. They all have the conditions and then at which you run some analysis on them. And I don't know whether there will be a platform where there will be like a training on the data analysis when it comes to social survey. I know it could be applicable too when it comes to ecological survey, when you link up some independent variables and dependent variables together. So that is number one. Number two is the aspect, I have a challenge of recent and as regards ethics in publication. I sent a manuscript to a journal in March, and looking at the frequency at which the manuscripts are published, I discovered that there were some manuscripts that were submitted after mine and it had been published. But till 2 months ago, I have not received any response from the journal. So I had to send a message to the editor-in-chief and there was no response yet to know the status of the manuscript. Then I had to go ahead and send it to a conference that will be coming up in December. But I had a challenge, and the challenge was that today a response came, that's the revision came, the response came from the journal that there's a minor revision. And also yesterday, a response came from the conference organizers that my paper had been accepted. So I become confused when it comes to ethics of publication. And I think I would really need more assistance on that so that I will not be confused whether in that situation, what should be done? What have I done wrong? And then how can I correct the wrong? So I think for now, those are the two submissions.
Okay, I think your question addressed two different things. One is the manuscript is submitted for publication. The second aspect is submitted to a conference. Those are two different things. So on
the same manuscript.
Yeah, the same manuscript, yes. But there are two different things with two different review processes. Remember that every time you submit a manuscript to a journal for publication, the editor-in-chief has no control over what the reviewers have to say. So the editors compile all the manuscripts they receive and send it out to reviewers. Usually some of them have deadlines or timelines of how long a reviewer can keep a manuscript and send back the responses. Some others don't really have it. So until the reviewer sends back the comments, the editor-in-chief really doesn't know. Maybe your manuscript was sent to a reviewer that took so much time to review. And in that process, the editor really just has to follow up with the reviewer. Have you done the review process? Can you please send out your comments before we get back to the author? So that one, there is not, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just the review process that got your comments back that took longer than you expected. And some reviewers respond that fast. So there's really no time reference. So, oh, these guys both submitted manuscript, but he submitted after I did and his paper is already published. Maybe his paper was sent to a reviewer that reviewed within 2 days and sent it back. And if they were not really that you didn't have a lot of comments on your in the review process, then your paper can be published and sent for publication instantly. So for conferences, it's a very different process. So the conference organizers are the ones deciding what to accept or not to be presented during the conference. So you can send your abstract to a conference and the next day you get a response. If it falls in line with the objectives of the conference, then you're going to accept it for presentation. So those are two different things. And you don't have control over such things. It is based on the reviewers and on the organizers of the conference.
Okay. But the issue now is that the conference will be published, they requested a full text and it will be published online. And also to journal 2, we have to also be an open access published online. Then I don't know, is it right? Because if both goes side by side and comes out, it means that when the conference is done after, the full text will be published online, and likewise to the journal to be published online.
Conference publications are not scientific publications. They don't go through a review process.
Okay.
So the conference can decide to publish your presentation online, that's fine. It's not a detailed publication as you send in the manuscript to the journal. So those are different things. What you're presenting at a conference are your slides, and you're talking about your work. So conferences, some of them might decide to publish that, but always make sure as part of your presentation, if the paper is going to be published by a journal, you indicate in your presentation where the journal is where it's going to be published. So even when the conference sends the document out online, they're going to make reference to the journal where the paper is coming out.
Just to add to that, if the conference is perhaps asking for full test, I don't think they're asking for the full test of the paper. I think they're probably asking for maybe the full test of your presentation, which could be your slides, or just a broad summary of your paper, which could be maybe 1 or 2 pages, not the entire paper. The entire paper is only for the journal, which in that case will be published in full online. And as Kelvin said, you can then cite that particular journal in your presentation.
Okay. The first question.
Can you repeat that question again then? I think
the first has to do with data. Will there be a platform for training on data analysis?
Okay, that depends on what you have at hand. And so we have different expertise in the teams. So we're going to explore the resources we have in the different groups to try to help and analyze, or to guide in analyzing data, or commenting on analysis which other people have done. So yes, there should be a platform for that.
Yeah, I think what we have in the works is that depending on what other interest need would be within the group. So after the meeting today, like I said, we're going to be sending out a survey so you can detail some of the things that you'd like us to discuss, or maybe talk a little bit more. And we're going to match this with other people's need within the group to be able to have an idea of what we need to do next. So please, I think that survey is going to be useful in this case, but we hope to be able to get to things that would broadly help everybody in general. Any question? Okay, I think we have a few minutes. So in that time, I think it might be, I think I'll just go over briefly that I'm really happy that we're all doing this today. We have about 80 participants here today, probably more, because we have some group of people that are connected together. So, I mean, of course, our group is much more than this. So a lot of people cannot make it today, and we hope that they'll be able to make it in future. But one thing I want to say is that I want to first of all thank Kelvin for helping us, for presenting this research design ideas and tips today. It's really, really useful. One thing I want to say to everybody is that if you know other people that are in environmental science that need it, that they need ideas and things to be able to connect to other people within the objective and goals of our program, please tell them and share the link and the resources that we have with them, so that they can join us also in the next meeting, or you can share the Slack account with them. You can, of course, share other documentations that we put online with them. Currently, we are trying to put together probably a web page or a page information that will be more shareable. So as time goes along, and if we have that done, we would, of course, we will send it out to everybody, so that will be something that will be easily, where you can find all the information about environmental science without borders. So after the program, we're going to be sending out the links to the survey, as well as the link to the presentation that Kelvin just gave. So so I just want to thank everybody. Now I want to stress again, if you have not joined the Slack account yet, please look over the email and try and join the Slack account, because that's where a lot of the conversation is going to be happening within the group and the subgroup levels. So thank you very much. In the few minutes that we have, I think it might be useful that we reintroduce ourselves, so to speak, because we didn't get to do that at the beginning. I think if other people want to quickly say their names and maybe a few information about themselves, that might be useful. Okay, I will start. I'm Yemi Adebiyi. Like I said, I'm one of the people that started this program. I'm here at UCLA. Yeah, and I'm a researcher, a postdoc here.
Kelvin? Okay, Kevin Njabo, University of California, Los Angeles.
I'm Chloe. I'm an undergrad at UCLA studying environmental science.
I'm Deep. I'm the graduate ambassador. I'm going to be helping operate the grad Slack channel. So if you indicate if you're a grad student or an undergrad or a postdoc or whatever on the survey that's going to be sent out, it's going to be helpful for me to be able to communicate with you better, and in turn for Yemi and all of us to be able to communicate with you better. I'm also at UCLA.
Thank you. Ashley?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley. I work with the Center for Diverse Leadership in Science. Thank you all for coming today, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we go with Slack and where we go with the next video conference. So thank you very much.
I'm Annie. Hi, everybody. I graduated in 2017 from UCLA with an astrophysics Bachelor of Science, geology minor, and I work with CDLS and also in the lab. So I'm excited to be a part of this group and appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Adeyemi Garuba. I'm sorry I can't show my video right now, but it's nice to be here. So, yeah, hopefully I'll know you more over the coming meetings.
Paolo?
Yeah, that's me. Do you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, so I'm Paola Cobo. I'm a student at SMC. I'm studying psychology, and I'm also really interested in environmental science. It's very nice to meet everyone. Thank you so much for all that information.
Thank you, Paola. Oha?
Hi.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey.
Yeah, go ahead. All right. I think that some issue there. Kat, would you like to please?
Hey. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm Alain Senghor Ngote, a liaison officer from the Congo Basin Institute. So I presently study mountain forest and non-timber forest product.
All right. Thank you. And Kat, mind you yourself?
Someone. The ones calling people to say.
Sorry. We can't hear you. Elise, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Elise from France. I'm a forestry graduate specializing in remote sensing for forestry management. I'm glad to be part of this group.
Thank you. Marie?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Marie from Cameroon. I'm a researcher at National Institute of Cartography, and I'm MSc student in cartography, Obafemi Awolowo University in Nigeria.
Marie is one of our organizers. So it's good to meet you, Marie.
Nice to meet you.
I'm sorry, I don't know if I pronounced that. Is that Cass? You want to meet? Yeah. Go ahead, Cass.
I just realized that my name is Cass. Oh, no, that's why I wasn't answering. My name is Senna.
Okay.
So I wasn't realizing that you're
Yeah, sorry.
So my name is Senna. I am at Savannah State University in Savannah, Georgia. I study marine science, and I'm very excited to be part of the program and growing with each other and helping each other as we go on. So looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if everybody has already talked.
Yeah, hi.
Yes. Hi.
Hello. Okay. Can I talk?
Yeah, Nee, I think you can talk.
Okay. Olani Oluwatobi Emmanuel. I'm a faculty at the Federal University of Technology, Akure, Nigeria. And currently I'm with the Third World Academic of Science as a postdoctoral researcher with the University of Putra, Malaysia. And I think it's a pleasure being part of this initiative.
Yeah. Who else? Serge, do you want to talk? Okay. I think that might be it. Bastien, do you want to talk too?
Yeah, well, Bastien Linol at the Nelson Mandela University in South Africa. With some of my colleagues.
Hello.
Okay, hi everyone.
Yep.
I am a master's student in Njabo.
Hello, my name is Barry Morkel and I'm a PhD researcher in political science focused on extractive industries.
Hi, I'm Sinazo. I'm studying evolution.
Hi, I'm Yari with Aon, Nelson Mandela University, focusing on citizen science.
Hello, my name is Lisa Lee. I am applying spatial statistics in environmental science.
That's for us. I think we had a good meeting here in Port Elizabeth.
And Thomas Moedi.
Hi everyone. My name is Thomas Moedi, and I'm a PhD candidate at Nelson Mandela University, and I'm part of that group sitting over there. And but I work for Council for Geosciences now, and I'm interested in dating zircons from dolerite rocks. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. Bastien, I hope you have all the email address of everybody within your group that just introduced themselves. I'm not quite sure if we do, but if you are not part of the group email list yet, please just I think Bastien can forward one to you. Well, I want to take this time to thank everybody, and please remember to do your breakout section, which is going to be the one we did for the subgroup level. I think the organizers will email each other to decide a date for that one. Is going to be in October for each of the groups. So that's going to be the breakout sections. Please coordinate accordingly. So I want to thank everybody for being part of this for this first meeting that we're having to start this program, and we're hoping to get it to the point where everybody is going to be it's going to be beneficial to everybody, and everybody's going to be able to get one thing or the other from this group. So on behalf of all the organizers and everybody that has been involved, I want to say thank you to everybody. So have a good day, and we hope to see you next month again during the breakout session. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Let's keep in touch.
Bye.
Yeah, please install your Slack and send us questions as you may see fit. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Kevin, for sharing. Welcome. Yeah, we have to figure out what's going to be the next topic.
You got it done, right?
Yeah, I'm turning it up now.